My Good morning. Welcome to a special edition of Norma Talks. And it's special because I get to talk to a friend of mine, Catherine Whalen Costen, who I met several years ago as she was having her own show called Get Real, Chatting with Catherine. And I had the great opportunity of being interviewed several times on her show. And then through Facebook, watched her as she also evolved into knitting and heard that she had a podcast, which I must admit I did not listen to because I haven't listened to podcasts. But then she's become an artist. And what I want to do is just share with you, and those of you that constantly watch me know that I often have trouble with sharing things. So let's see how this goes, because we're going to watch Catherine's work. Well, there we are. So, Catherine, you haven't even spoken yet, but how did it feel watching some of your own made video? I know you do that yourself, the music, the whole editing, but I'm so proud of you on that one too. How did that feel to see that today?
It's really something because it's so new. I only started painting really in March of this year, 2021. And it was, that the one that with the picture of me with that painting, the violet flame, divine feminine rising, that was the first one that kind of a light bulb went on for me, because it was like, wow, I did not plan that. I haven't planned any of them. I've picked the colors that I resonate with, like I'm drawn to certain colors or the size of the canvas or, maybe the technique, but every time it becomes something entirely different. And that one, when I looked at it, I could see this beautiful woman in a ball gown. It felt like it was flowing. And then as I looked closer, it looked like she was kind of standing to the side with holding the earth in the palm of her hand. And that's when I went, oh, that's the divine feminine. Oh my God. And all the violet flame all around her. I thought, transmuting all the negative energy. And then I could see in the flames and around her, all these people, like beings in hoods and watching her and kind of curious and faces. And I thought, holy crap, I was so excited. I was on fire myself, I thought. And I posted it on Twitter and I said, it was a happy accident. And my goodness, people are sharing like crazy, a happy accident, what the heck? But it truly was. And so, yes, I'm sure some people wonder, because when I post stuff, sometimes it's like, oh my God, look at this. I'm so excited, and they must think I'm crazy. But the thing is, I'm not coming from a place of bragging in the sense of, because it's coming through me. It's not like, I'm not saying to anyone, look how great I am. I'm saying, this is energy that's wanting to be expressed and it's coming through my hands. So I'm always intrigued on what is going to, and like every one of those paintings that are in that video are just an expression.
There's
So
a
yeah,
couple of them that really resonated with me in my heart. There's a couple there there's one that's kind of fans out, and there's a center part. It's almost like you got quite a good shot of it actually. And it just resonates with me, like, because each one of us really is the center of our own universe.
that's
Whether
right.
we like that universe or not, or whether we're screwed up, like I have many times in my life, it's like, that's what it's all about. It's like a kaleidoscope of movement and action and knowing and awareness, and and of course now, because I'm really aware of the different stages of my life and how each one had a certain part to play as to who I am today. And how do you find
Yeah,
that yourself?
and that's the thing, because I've had to learn a few, I've had to, every experience of my life, I'm pretty much self-taught, because first of all, usually I wanted to do something that people thought I shouldn't or couldn't and weren't going to teach me because it was a waste of time. And that's the thing about painting, is part of it was to do with that my brother was a painter, and I thought that was his role, and I wasn't. And I'm not a competitive person like I with other people. I'm very competitive with myself, but I always, if it's sort of, if that's your thing, I don't want to step on your shoes, or I don't want to be, I don't want you thinking I'm trying to be like you or take something from you. That was always my thing, was a program, there's 5 kids. So, everybody had their roles, and I knew what my role was. It was very well defined. I was the caregiver. I was supposed to do everything and anything to please other people, to make their lives better. But anything that I really had this passion wasn't part of it. So we didn't have a lot of money. So you're not going to, so that's another program about wasting, because if you like, in order to paint, you have to practice. You have to be willing to put in a little money to buy the paint, the canvas, you have to put your brush on the paper or whatever you're going to use. And you have to be willing to accept that it may be a mess. It may be an absolute mess that you don't like, that's ugly, that's just awful. And so for me, it was always about, you can't do that because you don't know if you can do it. So you'd be wasting money, you'd be wasting time. And people were always telling me that in my life. You don't have time for that, because my time was for them, to do stuff for them, right? Not to do what I was. So the only time I could dedicate to my creativity is if it benefited someone else.
Oh, right.
So
That
they could,
other people.
yes. So if I was going to do something, like I bake, and when I bake, everybody's happy about my baking, because then I give it to them, and they enjoyed it, and they love on it, and I would put a lot of love into my baking, and I know you can taste the difference in food that's been baked with love.
It's true.
So it's the same with my paintings. The love and energy that I'm imagining and bringing through is coming out into those paintings, because that's what there are people who are saying they find them healing. And I was just really, my intention is to just let it flow, right? So whatever they're seeing on it is beautiful, and I'm happy about that. But it's coming to the place where you're giving yourself permission to waste, like, to not think of it as wasting. You can't become an expert by not making mistakes. And that's what was it's not really that I used to think I was a perfectionist, but I don't really think I can accept my mistakes, but I couldn't break myself free of the idea that I was be wasting anything. anything. Like I had to either find another way to use it, or I had to be doing it for someone else, so that, I couldn't claim my time. I couldn't claim the money to do the things so all of that felt like it. When I got to this place, I gave myself permission. I said, I feel like I need to paint. I feel like I want to try that. I feel like I feel it. And so I gave myself permission to do it. So I just bought a little bit of paint and a couple of canvases, and I made a couple of really bad ones, like really bad. But it was kind of a bit like a few years before that, I I'd meditate and really just let myself go, but then my mind would get busy. And so I remembered that as a child, and even with my own children, when I would color with them, it was relaxing. I could see myself almost with my head on the table, just coloring and just chilling out, right? But I also remembered all the rules. You have to color in the lines. You have to, and I never often didn't have my own coloring book or crayon. So I was borrowing someone else. Can't press too hard. You're going to wreck the nib. You can't, all those things. So I had a couple of coloring books from when my kids were little, which there were pages that weren't colored yet. I bought myself a big pack of crayons, big one, all the different colors. And I went into that coloring book. I think it was something, The Train. I colored everything outside the lines first, breaking all the rules. Then I colored all the people the wrong colors. And I colored I just kept doing it until I could feel permission to make mistakes, to what people would call mistakes. It wasn't a mistake. It was the most perfect way of unprogramming myself, right? And then I got an adult coloring book and I started coloring the way I wanted to in it. So it was kind of progressing towards art, but not, each step I was giving myself permission.
Right. So what was there any big catalyst that came when you became aware that you were free from all those constraints? Where all of a sudden you realize, I can hear that you made steps to break out of the norm, as a woman. I know I went through that. You're there to serve, you're there to do this, you're there to do that. I can't say I relate to the coloring because I don't feel I'm an artist. So, but it's like we have rules. There's loads of rules and we're in that era where women in particular had particular roles, and not necessarily leadership, or particularly leadership roles in kind of, we will say, the metaphysical field. But I do want to say this. Coloring people differently. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm a movie crazy person. People there show up as green, blue, pink, real, and I remember saying, what a wonderful way of displaying the people of many colors. When I was very little, I used to think of that. Maybe if we were all brown. And then I realized now as an adult, there's no combinations to make brown. It's vast. But it was like, as a kid, I couldn't figure it out. Like, why not we all just brown? But that's because I wanted to be brown at the time. I'm always looking, because I have a very English skin. But, it's like, but I love that. You colored them all different colors because my first thought was Guardians of the Galaxy, because they,
In the crayon box, it has flesh color, or it used to have, I don't know what they call it now, flesh color. And that was kind of like pink. Is right. Like, seriously? No, nobody uses that color. Like, that's just silly. So, but yeah. And actually, I think, Norma, that each the coloring outside of the lines, that each was a part of the healing. Each was a, and really a lot of the catalyst was when my son was killed in a car accident in 2012. So that was March 15th, 2012. I had just started the talk show, Let's Get Real, Chatting with Catherine. And for 2 years, I was in what I can only call euphoria. I was in euphoria. I was not in that grief where people, like that place where a lot of people go so low, I was in the high, very high, and very aware. Like everything became more. And but I still didn't quite, I still was doing things for other people. I was just being, like even the show, people asked me to do that show because they needed a place to speak about alternative health and metaphysical stuff. And they just thought I'd be the perfect person to do it. And I didn't know I could do it. So I taught myself how to do all the different things. And then I did it.
And you did it well.
I had a ball. I mean, everything I've done, I had a ball. And I'm not, not sure I'm not finished doing that yet either, along with the documentary, which also is going to feature Norma Cowie, Beyond the Front Door, which was my way of saying, because I knew so many women have stories, and not celebrity necessarily women, but could be, but all of us have these stories about how we've kind of overcome a little bit of this oppression that has been a lot for women. We have these roles, and a lot of our roles have been very tiny boxes, as long as it was in service to others. But the big catalyst for me isn't like it wasn't one thing, except it was that once I did, like, honestly, when I tried doing the art, I didn't tell anybody. It was a little bit secret because I haven't not had a lot of support in my life for, like I said, doing anything that I felt really inside of me. And so much so that I didn't even know what was inside me.
Wow.
When people say, what did you want to be when you were a little girl? Well, when I was a little girl, I wanted to survive. That's it. I wanted to survive. I did not have a dream of being an artist or anything. I wanted to survive. I wanted to get out of the violence, the crazy, the insanity of my life. And so I stopped. I just, whatever, because I had a lot of trauma, a lot of early deaths in my family, like my dad dying when I was 9, and it not being handled very well by my mom and just society, as it just didn't. It was very traumatic. And it pushed me into the role of being a caregiver for my mother and then my stepfather, who had bipolar. So I believed my very existence depended on keeping my mother alive, because my father was dead. And if your mother is dead, then you're going to end up in a foster home, or all your siblings will be gone. Like, this is critical. And so that got cemented in there, and I continued that role until she died in 2016. So my life was put on hold because I had to be at her beck and call, and she was chronically ill. So you could say, in a way, part of the catalyst for me seeing myself as free, unfortunately, was after my mom transitioned, not my sons. My sons opened me to an awareness that there's no death. So then I became like, oh, maybe that's what started me questioning all of the stories, right?
Yeah.
But the real shift was then, once my mom was gone, I think that that control, manipulation, all of that stuff I did a lot of healing work on that, and you helped me with some of that stuff too, because it's so deep, you don't even know it's there. I didn't know I was looking for approval all the time. I didn't know, but I do now see it as part of that survival thing. But here's the thing that blew my mind totally and completely, because, okay, so I'll try to frame this. Whenever I noticed how easily, if I was doing something, this is where I got the idea that if I was doing something God wanted me to do, then I would have support to do it. So if so there's a little bit of all these permission slips here. If God wants it, someone else is going to say, call it from me. That's how I did politics. I was writing letters to the editor about this and that. And then I got a phone call. Would you run as a candidate for our party? And then I got into politics for a couple of years. And then I got out because, yeah. And so a very, very worthwhile endeavor, definitely an experience I enjoyed, but it was the permission. So when I started to think about art and the other things, when I went to do them, I had people who wouldn't talk to me, who left my life completely because I was going to do something. When I went to get into politics, I had people who had nothing to do with me at all. But afterwards, they would say, you were really good at that. But you see, I was taking the time away from the duties that were expected of me.
Right.
Like my mother said to me, oh, yes, you can do it. You're great. You're wonderful. You get up there and you can speak like crazy. And then she said, oh dear, if you get elected, you'll have to move to Edmonton or you'll have to move to Ottawa, depending. I ran in federal and provincial. And that would be terrible. That would be just terrible. And so all of a sudden, kind of sucked me back into my primary role was to look after my mother. So, but anyway, then I I'm doing my art and I'm I didn't know, like, I know there's people who have YouTube channels that show people do tutorials on how to do art. I've watched them and I've been inspired by them, but I can't do a tutorial because I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. This is the truth. I mean, I tell, like I said, I have the vision and I have the idea of the colors, but I can't tell you what I'm doing because I absolutely have no clue until it's finished. It's going to, right? So there's no point in me doing a tutorial, but I do the videos because a picture never can't really capture it properly, how that painting looks, but a video, you can see more details. So anyway, I put a couple of videos up, and because of my journey, because of my show and all of the spiritual work I've done, all the metaphysical understanding, all the healing work I've done on myself, I was aware that the art was connected to that it wasn't just a product. It was an energy, a life. It was something. So anyway, I made this little video that was very, spoke to that, like the darkness on the planet and then the shift into this light period, because that's what I feel like the painting is reflecting. We're bringing more light into the planet and it's becoming. So anyway, I did that and I lost another person in my life because I dared. I wasn't supposed to talk spiritual. I was just supposed to talk about my art. And I just went, here's another box, right? Here's another box where people have decided for you, you can be this or you can be this, but you can't be both. And I know I am all kinds of expressions. So, but here's where I had the real eye opener and it's so powerful for me because I realized as I look back in my life, all the times I tried to step into my power, to claim who I really am, authentically me. And there was the threat of being disowned.
Oh, right. Yes.
So it wasn't always, there were times people say, the family's going to disown you.
Wow.
The family's going to disown you or you're, or there was the threat of being disowned. So anyway, I noticed, and this person didn't say they were disowning me. They just basically kind of left my life. Like they just stopped. They didn't approve. And so, and I thought, well, that is weird. That is just weird but it didn't shake me. And this is why I kind of know that this awareness was coming right in to help me to understand it. And I was doing the dishes, which often happens in a light bulb moment. And I thought, why the hell is it such a bad thing to be disowned? Why would we want to be owned? Why do we want to be owned? Why does anybody think being disowned is a bad thing? We're all screaming about freedom. And then the key, because I know it's not just me that has been threatened with being disowned, and that belief triggers a fear beyond what we could possibly, and so when I realized it, when I got this light bulb, was like, I've been disowned. Like, not in so many words, but that's what it basically happened. That person, what does disowning mean? I'm free. I don't owe them anything. They don't owe me anything. I am safe and disowned. That was the thing, because I kind of went,
Yep.
how did I come to the point where I thought being owned made me safe? And then as I looked back in my history, of course, my grandmother was an indentured servant. So she was 9, which is kind of funny because she was 9 when her mother, her father left first, and then the mother left. And she ended up, in those days, they didn't put kids in orphanages at that time or adopt them out or foster homes. They had, at 9, they put her into a home to be a maid. So at 9 years old, she was scrubbing floors and doing whatever. And when she got married, on her marriage certificate, it said that was her occupation, maid. And I thought, holy smokes, she was 9. And 9 was the age I was at when my dad died. So significance in that I would pick up on her energy.
Right.
And my other grandmother was sent away because there were too many kids to feed. And the nuns had said they would educate her. She was fairly bright. And so they took her and educated her. She became a nurse and had a great life. But I never did get to talk to her about how she felt about being sent away. But that would be another sense of disowning, being not part of that family, right? So this would be in my energy field.
Wow.
And I just, when it came to me, I thought, this isn't just for me, because this whole planet we have all been slaves at one time or another in every culture. Like we talk about the Black people from Africa that were brought as slaves to North America. We are aware of that. In Canada, the Indigenous people, some of them were slaves. We don't talk about that as much. But, and then when I look at my Irish history, I was looking at the country of Ireland, and it's been conquered so many times by so many people. So I just thought, and when you look at our DNA, it's made up of all these from the beginning, weren't we all slaves? And weren't we all given to believe, this is the thing, as a slave, I remember reading about in the United States, people that once that freedom was given, they didn't have the resources to take care of themselves. So it put them in a terrible situation. So I'm looking at that thinking, there's the fear, you're free. And I remember that threat being given to me. You're free to do as you please, but don't you ever come back and ask me for anything. Don't you ever turn to me and expect support. You can do what you want, sure, but right? And how many young women got that? If you,
Oh yeah, lots got that.
So when it came to me, I celebrated. I celebrated that for 2 days. I said, I'm disowned. I truly am, and I claim it. I am free. I am a spiritual person, and this art is coming to me through my opening, through my healing. And I mean, I think everything, even when I was baking, it was channeled energy, that I was channeling love into that. Why is that so hard for people to get? We're not just this physical, right?
Well, it is hard for people to get, because as you know, I do this transformation work. And when you and I were talking, when you first mentioned that freedom, and I said, it's very interesting because I often think of the collective consciousness,
Uh-huh.
what's happening. And I ran into a number of people who were getting quite deep into their transformation, hitting lives where they were slaves. Actually, I should say, where they didn't have their voice,
Mhm.
where they couldn't speak up, where they were frightened to speak up or to say anything. And what I found was lifetimes where they had been slaves, which means you don't have a voice. You have to do as you're told or look out. Or servants. Again, servants don't have a voice except yes, ma'am, no, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's so when you mentioned to me that all of a sudden it was like, I'm free. And I thought, yeah, I'm doing work with people in order for them to be free. And I still know there's parts of myself that still often lack the courage to totally step out in some areas that is not appropriate at this moment for things to say that I'd like to say. And I'm looking at that as to where in my life I've noticed I didn't have the courage to go and ask a question or to push the envelope or to do, and who knows what would have happened if I'd done that, but I didn't have, because I wasn't raised to be courageous.
But we do live on a planet where we have actually been indoctrinated over the long time
Mhm.
to shame people, to shame them into and threaten them to be disowned from the group, the club, the tribe, which, if you were disowned from the tribe way
Ooh,
back, you would die, right?
yes.
So it's part of that collective that you're talking about. And so now we're hearing, I just find it interesting when as we've gone through this pandemic stuff, that how people are trying to show ownership of other people's rights, and how we're doing it on both sides. Like, people think it's just the one side that's saying, if you don't do this, you're a bad person, or if you do this, you're a sheep, or if you do, or like, how to, like, we seeing people all the time posting pictures on social media of them getting their vaccine. When in my lifetime, when I took medication of any kind, I didn't post a picture of it and say, look, or I had surgery here. When did we start turning our bodies into these, I mean, trophies for big pharma? Like, look at my big scar. Look at,
Yeah.
I just, it's part of the, it's an erosion that's happened over time. But I just really can see how being free to us as a species scares the daylights out of us. We can say we want to be free, and I always thought
Yeah.
I was free.
Well, you hit walls. You can be free. Like, I'm very against censorship. It's in my, I don't know, it's in my bones. When the censorship first started on things, I began to sort of like, I don't like this. I mean, I grew up in a very kind of, I grew up in New Zealand, as you know, and it was at that time, it was a very socialistic type country, but we all had freedom and we all were pretty much the same. The working class was pretty well the same. There wasn't much of a middle class. There was a
Yeah.
very rich up there. And I somehow, I don't know, as a child, I had a really good understanding of it all. And it stayed with me. And what I liked was the diversity in the people. I went to school, we all had school uniforms, but we were all different. And I
Yes.
was really different. I was kind of, out in some la la land somewhere. But I always thought we had a right to say what we thought or felt, because how else, I found in my life, and I've made my career, you might say, through talking,
Mhm.
is that when you speak something out, you see it.
Yes.
At least for me, maybe that's the
Yeah.
intuitive part of me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if I have it all bundled up inside, I get confused. But if I talk about it and if I look at it, I get to see it and maybe it's its truth or its reality. But for me, is anytime you start censoring one section of thought, you're asking for trouble somewhere, because it
Yeah.
builds up like a dam. What happens to a dam eventually often can break and come flooding back. You cannot suppress a tidal wave. You can't.
Yeah.
It's
And
going to come in. And I
I,
just sense that. I just sense that people are getting tired of being told what they should or shouldn't do. And people getting fired when all they're saying is, I've done this research and this doesn't look good. Nope, sorry, you're fired. Like, from high positions. I don't get it. That's censorship. Don't like it myself.
yeah. Well, and the thing of it is that I think we're seeing, an awakening, but the thing is, I think we're also seeing people not really understanding freedom fully, in the sense that freedom doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Freedom means, there's responsibility. I mean, if you're going to live in a civil society, there is responsibility. So like you say, when you speak something, you can see it, and so can other people. So if you're speaking hate, you're speaking, inciting people to do things that are harmful, well, then other people can see that. But I think what's happened is we are treating each other like infants, in the sense that if I speak, years ago, when I was young, growing up, I remember, okay, you'd have the bigot, the person, the racist, the person that was whatever. And they didn't, unless they were in their club of people that thought like that, in polite society, so to speak,
Yeah.
they didn't do that. They censored themselves, because they knew if they wanted to do business with other people, if they wanted to be invited to different things, they weren't going to be invited. That's how we
Hmm.
decided if we wanted those people in our energy, let's say.
Right.
But today, when somebody speaks it, there's a whole group of people who don't think tall and just jump on the bandwagon. And so I
Mhm.
think I agree with you about censorship. Where I think we have the issue is because we are evolving, we have people who've done their work, who are able to do true thought examination. They're able to take information and actually decipher what, to comprehend. I think as a society, we have a lot of low comprehension going on, because people are not thinking. If you go on social media and look at the way people talk to each other, there's not a lot of thought going into this. It's
Do you think
reaction.
do you think a lot of it is because when, like, in my age, and I know I'm older than you are, we were taught manners, which
Yes.
is respecting other people. That didn't mean that you didn't do what you wanted to, but you respected, like you were saying. You didn't speak out. But you see, today everything has become separate. You put something in your phone, it goes off. There's no responsibility for your word. There's no responsibility, and people can block you or whatever they do.
Yes, exactly.
Um, so I grew up to a large degree thinking about what I'm saying. And now, I mean, I definitely channel when I'm reading for people or when I'm transforming. I don't know. But still, there is a caliber of verbiage that I make, like, isn't in my verbiage when I'm doing that. Even it's a respect of that person's inner being. And I think we've lost that. I
Yeah.
think we've lost the respect, and we don't stand up and say, I really don't like what you're saying, or I don't agree with what you're saying, and treat it in respect. So I think the loss of respect has a lot to do with our modern age, actually.
Well, then it is a bit of a domino thing too, though, because like, even when I was 10 years old, I would not say something that was disrespectful to anyone, right? Because I might get a slap right in the
I was
face.
just going to say, I'd get my ear clipped.
Yeah, exactly. And then go home and get another one from my parents for doing the same thing, right? So we were kind of taught about civil society and how you could have a discussion. Like was reading back, one of the fathers of Confederation in Canada was Edward Whelan. I don't know if I'm actually related to him, but it intrigued me. So I bought a book. It cost me $100 for this, a very old book,
Oh,
but it was about him and his speeches and so forth, that he, because he was quite eloquent in the political realm. And what I noticed when I was reading back in that, so, early 1900s, they were really eloquent and precise, and they could rip a strip off somebody that, I mean, you would just be like, I love words. So it was just like reading it was like, whoa, what did he just say out loud in the public square kind of thing. But they didn't just use slurs. They were
mm,
using language that made you think about what they were saying, right?
right.
Whereas today, we hear people, they're not actually expressing a disagreement or they're just, you're a this or you're a that, or F this or F that. Like it's such a low vibration
Yeah,
dialogue.
you brought a thought to me all of a sudden, if you don't mind me jumping in. One of the things I've been running through into with people is the intellectual aspect of us and how everything is put in a box. I'm running into that a lot with some of my clients, where their intellect is boxy. Like it's almost like we're having to break down the boxes to unlock the intellect to being. So, and that is some of the belief structures that were put in place that we've had. And so you've broken out of your box. You've
Yeah.
broken away from the box. And that is what I wanted to speak to you about today, because it warmed my heart to, because I've known you for quite a few years now, and I know sometimes the little struggles you've had, as we both have had, but it's like all of a sudden here you are blooming and realizing freedom for yourself in such a phenomenal way. And I really wanted to congratulate you on that, because I'm running into that with my clients. And I'm running into those boxes. I'm running into, as I said, slavery and not being able to speak up. And it's really interesting time, because I've done this work for quite a lot of years, and I wasn't hitting that before. That's an awareness I have definitely come into. I mean, I'm showing it. I mean, it's not something I find out of nowhere. I went, oh, look at that. That's happening again. Oh, that's happening again. So
Yeah.
I think that we open up and we become more like who we are. And this is the other thing I value and I really liked in your paintings. Each one of us is a flower in a way of individuality. And I say this to many of my clients, we all have different fingerprints. They say snowflakes are different, but how the heck do we know? Because you touch it and it goes away. But anyway, but our eyes are different. Like we are individuals, and we may have similarities. We may have like we may like to think this way a certain way or that way a certain way. But the bottom line is, and I think this is getting lost, especially now with the lockdowns, spirituality has many different faces. And some of the faces, I must admit, I don't particularly like.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is they all talk about love. And they all talk about that essence of love. And you mentioned it in your cooking, and all the things that you do, you come from that heart place. I must admit, I tend to be more of a mental intellectual in some respects, but I love it when I can get and feel that heart, that knowingness being. And I really, truly believe that we're here to connect to that love source. And it seems to me, and this is just that the external world is not looking at that. And I think that's one of the reasons I basically was asked way back the beginning of 2019 to begin putting out some of my ideas and concepts. And I've noticed how it's changed over the years to really talk about connecting to the love source,
Well,
and being aware of that.
but don't you think that this is, I mean, this is why we're here. We're, there's an understanding, we have shifted vibration, we're raising the vibration, is to move out of the old. And when I look at what's happening, and the even people in spiritual communities who are also kind of saying, if you're not like us, you're wrong. People who are not, like it's like, it's like a staircase. We're walking up the stairs and we're all at different spots, right? And we are each not just looking individually different, we have different lifetimes. And I mean, that, like we come into this with all of these other lifetimes of experience, right?
Yep.
All the things that we don't know how we know, but we know. I just realized the other day that I never called it a clair, but it's the being able to taste something without actually physically tasting it. Well, I've had that on my entire life, but I just thought I didn't know it was
Your
a psychic.
psychic mouth working, girl.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I had no idea. I didn't know that's what it was called. I just, in fact, I had so many people telling me I was wrong. I didn't know what I was talking about because even as a little girl, I knew I'm not going to like that. I don't like that. No, thank you. Yes, please, kind of thing, right? And when I cook, because I cook for my family, I don't taste what I'm like. People taste the soup or the spaghetti sauce when they're making. I don't taste at all, but I know, and I know what to add into it and but here's the thing, a lot of those things I don't eat either. So it's really interesting when you think about it, that I know exactly how much of a certain seasoning or whatever to put in that people are going to enjoy, even though I am not going to eat that at all.
I appreciate what you're just saying, because I find very, very few have their psychic mouths developed.
I definitely
don't.
I didn't know that's what it was.
I've had it come up a few times in transformation work where something tastes weird, but yeah, most people do not eat, like most people don't even know they have a psychic nose or mouth. And so it's like that kind of, but that's a beautiful story, because that is prime. I'm tucking that story away so I can use that.
Oh, it's incredible, because, and it's another place where I was different. So I was wrong because I was different.
Right.
And I mean, you're always wrong if you're different. And that's what I'm finding is right now we're looking, because the external world is so heightened in its fear. That's what I see. And because I think a lot of us are doing this personal work, there's a bit of a difference in the vibration, which is going to cause a little bit of, but there's a lot of people going around telling people they're wrong. And the funny part is, I had somebody telling me quite frequently I was what they didn't say I was wrong. They said, you're making people wrong by what you're saying.
Whoa.
And I was saying what I believed. And they kept on correcting me and telling me that, oh, maybe in your reality, or maybe in your, and I kept thinking, why are you're talking about, you're saying people are making people wrong, and you're telling me how wrong I am. So we are so full of these crazy hypocrisies and
the box. Yeah. The box. Which box are you in?
Yes.
Are you an open-ended box?
That's what I keep hearing.
That it has to be this way, or it's like this way was a good way. Like, I don't think in time, I mean, my parents were born at the beginning of the early 1900s. And of course, they're long gone now. But it's like, when I look back to what they courted on horseback, I mean, really, just over, mom would have been 116 years old this month of June. So just actually last week.
Look how much has happened, hey?
I mean, look at how fast we've progressed, but you see, we haven't progressed in our understanding of our humanity. We haven't progressed do you know the old farmer way, way back knew more about the earth and about the sun and the rain and how it worked, and had to go out there. They knew about the divas, even though they didn't know it exactly. They knew all those things. They knew how to make their plants grow. They love the earth. And actually, it distresses me today when I hear some of the things they got planned for the earth. But anyway, that's another story. But it's like they love the earth, because from the earth, everything came and nourished their bodies.
That's why felt so free when I heard I was, when I understood I had been disowned, when I understood it.
Yep.
And when I really, and the funny part is that, some people that were, I had that feeling from are starting to come around, which is okay. That's wonderful. And I think, but I had to claim it.
Yeah, but in you claiming it, it allows the thought form to grow, to help other people unlock. Even though you may not be aware of it, it's like a radio signal's gone out. And your radio signal is fairly strong. So therefore, in the strength going out there saying, hey, it's okay to be who you are and be free to who you are with respect for others. But it's like the awareness, so others will fall into line.
Yeah. And the part that what you were talking about is this our intellect and their physicality and whatever. What's become really clear to me and clearer in my freedom is in realizing somebody was trying to tell me I need to stay in my own lane, right? My own box. Mm-hmm. And what occurred to me in that moment was, you have no idea how big I am. I look small, but I'm huge. Like, I am physical, mental, spiritual, energy, and I've been around this universe a long time, right? So, and I feel it in me. Like, it's not, I just feel that. Like, it's like, oh my God, I'll never have a lane. Are you kidding me? Like,
good for you.
You can't have a lane. So, but I know I had to go to the awareness of what did disowning mean, that word, that term, and it's not always used in a word, it's not always said that way. I had to get that. But here's the other thing that I thought was powerful, and maybe for the viewers to kind of, because you talk about words a lot too, about the meaning and that word chain where
right.
one thing, right? And yeah, I like that. And you have so many good tools, Norma, just amazing. But what I got was, so I was doing muscle testing and trying to figure out, like, had I changed my energy and financially, like, to do this art, it costs money for supplies, and I've got to sell them, right? But I didn't know that I was going to be selling my art. That came through people saying, you have to get a website. You got to be selling these. Like, I mean, and I was like, okay, really? People want to have these in their homes and their offices and whatever. Isn't that cool? So I was wondering, okay, I've done this, and I mean, it's all happened very quickly, but I put it out there, and I sold my first one a couple of weeks ago, which was like, it didn't even make it to the website. They saw it and they immediately claimed it, and I was like, holy jumping. So then but then I started thinking about it. Well, what is this, so I was doing muscle testing, and I do the yes and no answer, and I said to myself, the universe supports me. And I got a hard no. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What? Like, and so I kept on, trying to figure out, well, was I using the wrong word? Did I not understand the universe, God, creator, what, and it kept on. It was hard no. And then I said, I am supported by the angels or the angelic realm. And it said, yes. And I thought, oh, that's weird. That's an interesting flip in my. But then I got a hit on an understanding of the word take. You think about it, take credit for your work, take ownership of your self and your life, right? Now I could say I'm a receiver, like my radio is a receiver, but if it's not completely in alignment, it's not going to take it in.
Right.
I wasn't able to take because I thought, just like I thought the word waste, I was wasting time and wasting. I wasn't allowed to take. And I had experiences as a child where something was taken from me that was mine, fully mine, and somebody else wanted it, and I got punished, severely punished. I got a licking for it. I got shamed. I got all kinds of things, and it was mine. It was my hairbrush, and it was taken to give to somebody else. And it was ridiculous, but but I got and I'll never forget it. Right.
Yeah.
And I got shamed by the whole people around. And so taking, even if it was mine, I interpreted it as wrong, 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 right? Punishment. You take it, you'll be punished.
Oh,
And
wow.
then, and there was another saying, when someone took something from me, it was funny. I had people say to me, they wouldn't say this about themselves, but they say it to me. Somebody took something from me, they'd say, well, they must have needed it more than you.
Ooh.
And I started,
that hurts.
and that is how I live. That's how, if people took, they could take it. I wasn't going to fight. I don't want to fight. I didn't want to fight with anybody. You want it, you take it. Okay, it's yours. You must need it more than me. I learned to say that all the time. And so when I was doing the muscle testing and I got, okay, can I receive? Can I receive? You can receive like crazy, but if you don't take it in, if somebody gives you a compliment and I was noticing I was doing it, I was giving it back to them. I was saying, they say, what a beautiful painting. That's lovely. You do great work. And I'd say, oh, thank you. You're so generous for saying so. Like I just flip it back at them.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm not doing that. Now I'm taking it in, taking it. I'm just, thank you very much. I'm loving it. I'm appreciating it. And I'll tell, my whole life has changed. My whole point of view has changed. I do not feel as disowned as I may be. I don't feel it.
No, but
I mean, I feel it. I feel the freedom. It's like I'm celebrating the word. Disown me. Yes, please do it.
But you see, what you've done is made space to allow in that loving force of the universe. When I say support me, no, because I'm not taking it in. I agree. What my closing thing in my transformation is an exercise that I have found that people can connect to the loving universe and to bring it in, because I discovered very early in my journey that's where it had to be. And I just had a client the other day that was just too terrified, and so we're working on that next. And thank you, because what you've done is given me a clue about, because I was right at the end of a long session, and sometimes I get a little tired of all that psychic concentration.
Yeah.
And I just said, oh, this is just a closing exercise. We'll do it next time. And there's some word change stuff on the word terrified and a few other things. But anyway, it's like, yeah, you've made me aware. Sometimes it's just about taking in. We're not used to taking in the good stuff. And I knew that instinctually the first time I hit the universal love energy. I knew, never mind out here, which is taught religious wise. In here, please. Let me get it in here.
And it's you really, I just want to say to people, like, there's words, and words have energy, and I'm a big fan of that part. But this whole concept, because taking it in, but if you're not feeling it, it's not in.
That's right.
You gotta get in. And and this stuff isn't for sissies. Let me say, this is hard work, and my life, this lifetime, has been hard and really fun, like a lot of fun in the crazy of it, but hard.
But now just take a look what we get to look at. Because we're going to need to wrap this up, unfortunately, because you and I could talk for hours, and we know that.
That's true.
But is that what you're saying here is really enlightening for a lot of people, I'm sure. But the thing that warms my heart is that you brought tears to my eyes several times, actually, with what you've said, but is that now you get a chance to create this into painting that people can enjoy and be inspired. Catherine the Inspirer, there you go.
Thank you, Norma.
That's what you're doing.
That's
what you're doing. Yeah, you're inspiring. And I really want to thank you for being willing to talk to me. And because I
love talking to you, Norma. It's always fun.
It's years and years ago, I did have a cable TV show, and I used to do little interviews, but I'm not an interviewer per se. So I'm much
You
more of a,
do wonderful interviews, and your information is so important. And I know you were ahead of your time. I know that, and I know you always had a following and people picking up. But you know,
this is not
there's
about,
that. I mean, that's the thing about Beyond the Front Door, is that the grandmother's wisdom doesn't, it's not always there. Not every grandmother has wisdom, because not every human being is on that path. But when she does, by God, pay attention. It's powerful. And you have that.
well, thank you. So do you. And I know you've inspired us today. So I just want to thank everybody for watching, and just a reminder that Norma Talks will come back on, well, they're Wednesdays and they're Sundays. I kind of show up. So
Well, in
thank
the
you very
meantime, if they want to connect with me, Norma,
Yes.
they can go to my website. All my social media is on the website. That video is on, that you showed, is on the YouTube channel, but all my
Yes.
social media is Clarity Whisperer,
Yeah.
artandsoul.com. Clarity
And the
Whisperer.
good news was that when we showed that, it was idle on the bottom too. So I'll remind people again, they could see that. No, right. Yeah, certainly we have to give you a plug for everything. And
Yeah.
I'll look forward to seeing more of your artwork displayed one way or the other.
Yeah, well, it's all for sale, because I'm just
I'm gonna stop the recording, but we'll chat a bit more offline, okay?